Tonight, major flood warnings and widespread power outages across the country's east. The remnants of Cyclone Alfred still carving a dangerous path.
The worst thing to happen to me.
Sectarian violence sweeps Syria. International alarm grows over reports that hundreds of civilians have been killed. Australia to attend a summit of EU defence chiefs as the Prime Minister considers deploying peacekeepers to Ukraine. And
are humans going to be overtaken by robots?
China's AI industry gives us a glimpse into the future. I'm Janice Petersen. This is SBS World News. Good evening. More than 300,000 properties are still without power in Queensland and New South Wales as ex-tropical cyclone Alfred continues to wreak havoc across Australia's east. Severe winds and heavy rains lashing coastal centres, with more than 30 centimetres of rainfall recorded in some areas in the past 12 hours. The chaos caused by the tropical low stretches across the border to northern New South Wales, where dozens of flood rescues have taken place as the system continues to track inland. Let's take a look at today's developments then. A public safety declaration was issued for Hervey Bay, giving police additional emergency powers to carry out evacuations and flood rescues. More than 2,000 calls for help were made to the Queensland SES, police and fire crews over the past 24 hours. While the Gold Coast is facing a mammoth clean-up expected to cost at least $1.8 billion. Well, across the border, relief though for some communities in Lismore with evacuation orders lifted there, but our coverage tonight begins in Brisbane.
In Brisbane, roofs no match for ex-cyclone Alfred as 100-kilometre-an-hour winds make easy work of walls. Dining areas and living rooms exposed. At least 110 millimetres of rain falling in Brisbane over the past 24 hours. Kedron Brook Creek bursting its banks and playgrounds going under. Seaside. High tides fuelled by strong winds threaten the seawall. Queensland authorities confirming 2 people were injured by falling trees in separate incidents in Brisbane. Some residents lucky to escape without physical injury.
I thought the worst was over, but yeah, this is the worst thing to happen to me.
Further north,
main drains are on the corner up there with the ducks.
The intensity of the ex-cyclone catching residents in the coastal city of Hervey Bay off guard. Entire streets underwater, up to 300 millimetres falling over 24 hours, much of it falling this morning, triggering widespread flash flooding. Queensland police forced to set up an exclusion zone to protect residents, urging them to shelter in place, with dozens of swiftwater rescues carried out.
Hervey Bay was the centre of 75 calls this morning. Through the course of this morning, they included a range of incidents from people trapped in vehicles, people with water around or within their properties.
The response to today's inundation has been a multi-agency effort, with the state's SES, police and fire and rescue crews working together to respond to calls for help. Tomorrow, at least 100 SES interstate volunteers will arrive in Brisbane to assist with clean-up efforts.
The situation in Queensland and northern New South Wales remains very serious due to flash flooding and heavy winds.
Downed power lines also remain a concern, with nearly 2,000 workers deployed to try and restore electricity.
It's been a really challenging day of rain and wind, and they are working to reconnect that power.
You've really got to tip your hat to all of these volunteers and the people who have been providing around-the-clock service to their local community.
But as some areas emerge from the worst of it, signs of everyday life are returning. Weathering a tropical low, thirsty work. As others try their best to clean up, meteorologists warn the system is likely to dump more heavy localised rainfall in excess of 200 millimetres across the state over the next day.
And our reporter Alexandra Jones joins us now from Brisbane next to the Logan River. Good evening, Alexandra. What's the latest there?
Good evening, Janice. Well, as you can see, it's raining very significantly where we are now, near the suburb of Logan, which is on the southern side of Brisbane. The Logan River behind us has burst its banks. It's one of several rivers in the region that has done so, and one of the rivers that is under a flood warning, including the Brisbane River as well. And these rivers are expected to rise further overnight with the rainfall continuing. Now, the Queensland Premier, David Crisafulli, this afternoon provided an update. He says that recovery hubs have been activated to assist all those residents who have been impacted by this disaster. About 800 staff have been prepared and are ready to go. In terms of things that are opening in the area, domestic airlines have resumed flights to most airports in the region, including Brisbane and the Gold Coast, but Hervey Bay Airport remains closed. In terms of schools reopening, more than 1,000 schools were closed last week in response to this weather event. Some of those will be reopening. The Premier says that parents are urged to Google school closures and check the government website to check their child's school. But he says that on the Gold Coast, most schools will remain closed due to the significant damage in that region. Now, the Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, has travelled to an army base here in Queensland where some of the soldiers deployed to assist with this disaster were based. His visit was prompted by an incident last night in which more than a dozen ADF soldiers were injured when two military vehicles crashed near Lismore.
Anthony Albanese visiting the Gallipoli Army Barracks in Brisbane in a show of support. It follows last night's crash involving two ADF trucks carrying 32 soldiers en route to help the SES clear debris outside Lismore.
I know that you'll all be feeling it as well with the incident last night, and we certainly hope and pray for full recovery for those involved in this.
In my 32 years of policing, it's the largest accident scene that I've been to. So one vehicle had left the roadway and had overturned in a paddock. It had rollen a number of times, and one was blocking the entire road.
13 were injured, 6 seriously. It sparked questions over concerns raised in the Defence Strategic Review about whether the department's equipped to handle disaster recovery work.
Yes, there is a conversation that we are having and we will continue to have going forward. But in a given disaster right now, we will be there and we will continue to lean forward to make sure that all the capabilities are provided.
Lismore locals thankful for the assistance.
They got through a power of work. They were amazing after the 2022 disaster. So that any time you see these vehicles in your city, it fills you with confidence and hope.
This time, the Wilsons River didn't inundate the CBD after peaking at 9.3 metres yesterday afternoon. Many thankful they won't face the heartbreak of starting over again this time.
Costing us money to stay closed, so we may as well open up. It's not a huge pack up for us. We've done it that many times now.
It is traumatic, and you're kind of thinking, well, can I come back? Will I come back? Took 4 months to get the shop back up and running again last time. Don't think I can do that again.
But the flooding in surrounding areas has been severe.
In the last 24 hours, we've had 17 incidents that have occurred as a result of people driving into floodwaters.
One man didn't survive after being washed away from his vehicle near Dorrigo on Friday. Authorities carrying out numerous rescues as conditions caught some off guard. Grafton also in the firing line with a major flood warning issued for the Clarence River.
Grafton people, they also go under here as well. So any flood is a bad flood in my books.
Tonight the deluge moves further inland with people there bracing for what's to come. Kat Landers, SBS World News.
International alarm is growing over violence in Western Syria. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights documenting the execution of 750 civilians from the Alawite minority and loyalists of the former regime. Violence concentrated in 4 areas. Security forces say they're now in full control of the city centres. And a warning, this story contains distressing images and details.
Hundreds gather at the gates of the Russian-operated military base, calling for Moscow's protection. Mostly women and children. Thousands more have fled to the mountains from what a war monitor calls sectarian massacres of the Alawite minority.
Covering my face now because I don't want anyone to see my face, because if they see me, they will kill me. Terrorists are killing everyone, children, women, teenagers, old people, just killing. There is more than 100 body in my village now.
Social media is flooded with yet unverified videos of what appears to be civilians being executed in broad daylight. Alawite communities detail people being dragged from their homes, lined up in the streets and shot. Survivors prevented from retrieving the bodies. Revenge killings by gunmen loyal to the government began after Assad loyalists ambushed security forces of the new government on Thursday.
It demonstrates that the government is really not in control of big swaths of what's going on in Syria, particularly on the coast, because many militias streamed out of northern Aleppo and Idlib area to join in what was really a paroxysm of violence.
The government says it's in control, blaming rampant violence on unaffiliated individuals, not soldiers.
It's strictly forbidden to approach any home or target any individual except in accordance with operational plans. The Ministry of Defence will begin evacuating all individuals not involved in operations. Any violation will result in immediate legal action without leniency.
This is the first real challenge to the interim government, 3 months after removing Bashar al-Assad from power.
They now need to respond. They need to respond decisively. They need to show that they are the ones in charge, but they also need to do so without alienating the Alawites.
At funerals for security forces, family members vow revenge. The UN envoy to Syria calling for restraint from all parties. The EU joining the GCC in condemning any violence attempting to undermine stability and peaceful transition. Liz Maddock, SBS World News.
Officials in Ukraine say at least 25 people have been killed over the past day as Russia ramps up its attacks on a country now without US military support. The Kremlin also claiming significant advances in the Kursk border region in what would be a major setback for Kyiv ahead of negotiations in Saudi Arabia.
Dobropilya Donetsk, the latest target of Moscow's ballistic missiles. The Ukrainian president says at least 11 people were killed and 50 injured in this attack alone. The youngest, a 10-year-old girl.
Literally every day, Russia proves with its cruelty that nothing has changed for them in Moscow. They are thinking not about how to end the war, but about how to destroy and capture more.
More strikes in Kherson, Kharkiv and here in Odessa too. All these attacks just hours after US President Donald Trump appeared to defend Vladimir Putin, saying the Russian leader was only doing what anyone would do. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk writing, "This is what happens when someone appeases barbarians. More bombs, more aggression, more victims." Stand with Ukraine. Washington's wavering support triggering protests in DC. And in Kyiv, dozens gathered outside the US embassy with their own messages for the president.
Maybe it's a language barrier between Putin and Trump. When he says he wants peace, he really says he wants a piece of Ukraine. And by piece of Ukraine, he wants all of it.
And the blows keep coming. US satellite technology company Maxar now suspending Ukraine's access to its images via some platforms after Trump suspended intelligence sharing. Images Kyiv relied on to track Russian troop movements. On the battlefield, the cracks are beginning to show. Russia says it's now recaptured 3 villages in the Kursk border region, where Ukrainian troops made a lightning advance last August. These videos shared by Chechen commander Major General Abdi Alaudinov, who wrote, "In all directions of the Kursk sector of the front, all units have gone on a large-scale offensive. The enemy is abandoning positions, leaving their established areas." The advance appears to be aimed at cutting off the logistical routes Ukraine relies on to supply its troops. So far, no comment from Kyiv. Claudia Farhat, SBS World News.
Australia will attend a summit of EU defence chiefs as our government considers its involvement in a proposed post-war deployment of peacekeepers to Ukraine. Our political correspondent Naveen Razik joins us now from Canberra. Good evening, Naveen. Now, this follows a call between Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Britain's Prime Minister last night. What did they discuss?
Janice, on the agenda, assistance after Tropical Cyclone Alfred, the AUKUS Alliance, but also this coalition of the willing, the so-called initiative being spearheaded by the UK and France for Europe to draft a peace process for Ukraine and also to consider contributing peacekeeping troops into the region to ensure any ceasefire holds. Now, Britain's Prime Minister Keir Starmer is said to have welcomed Anthony Albanese's openness to contributing to this initiative, and the Prime Minister today confirmed Australia's military representative to NATO, Air Vice Marshal Di Turton, will attend Tuesday's summit in Paris. Anthony Albanese at pains to make clear this is so far no commitment to send troops into Ukraine, saying that it is still too early to consider the level of Australian involvement.
You can't have peacekeeping forces without having peace. Moving forward, though, it is important that planning be put in place, and Australia will participate in that.
Now, while support for Ukraine has been bipartisan, the opposition leader Peter Dutton today was critical of suggestions Australian troops should be involved on the ground in Ukraine. He says we should focus on regional security issues closer to home. Here's what he had to say.
We should be doing everything we can to bolster our security and our defences, and to make sure that we're investing in, not taking away from the capacity of the Australian Defence Force. And my judgment is that to base troops in Europe at the moment is the wrong decision for our country.
Of course, any such peacekeeping mission in Ukraine would need not just the approval of Kyiv, but Moscow as well. And the Kremlin has so far rejected any notion of Western peacekeepers being involved after the war ends.
Thank you so much. That is our political correspondent Naveen Razik updating us from Parliament House in Canberra. Well, coming up, Labor seals a 3rd consecutive term in WA as attention now turns to the federal election. Also, economic pressures in Indonesia reshape Ramadan festivities for millions of followers. From Istanbul to Argentina, International Women's Day protests held across the globe. There are hopes negotiations will resume for the next phase of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas, with both sides confirming they'll send a delegation to talks in Doha. The truce was in danger of collapse after the first phase ended last weekend. Palestinians and protesters in Israel are calling for the next phase to be implemented immediately.
Thousands outside Israel's defence ministry calling for more hostages to be released from Gaza.
די! תחזירו לי את הילד שלי! תחזירו את כולם עכשיו!
Their frustration once again directed at Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Netanyahu's interests are not the interests of the State of Israel or its people. The vast majority of the Israeli public wants all remaining hostages to be returned home immediately.
Talks to implement the second phase of a truce were supposed to start a month ago. A Hamas spokesperson saying the group was ready to engage in the second phase negotiations in a way that meets the demands of its people, calling for intensified efforts to aid the Gaza Strip. Benjamin Netanyahu's office later saying Israel has accepted the invitation of the mediators backed by the US and will send a delegation to Doha on Monday in an effort to advance the negotiations. The White House is yet to comment on the developments, which come as a summit of Muslim nations rejected Donald Trump's calls to evacuate Gaza and turn it into a so-called Middle East Riviera, instead adopting Egypt's plan to rebuild the Strip. The foreign ministers of France, Germany, Italy and Britain also welcoming Cairo's plan, describing it as, quote, realistic. Stronger sentiments against Trump's plan scrawled on the fairway of his golf course in Scotland. Activists also vandalising the adjacent hotel with red paint. The group saying it rejects the US president's treatment of Gaza. Trump's Turnberry Golf Resort called the action childlike and criminal. Taisok Yuzi, SBS World News.
Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has rejected a US push for talks between the two countries. While he didn't refer to the US by name, Khamenei said a bullying government was being persistent. He says the talks would be aimed at imposing restrictions on Iranian missile range and its influence in the region.
بعضی از دولت‌های قلدر اصرار به مذاکره می‌کنن. مذاکره اونها برای حل مسائل نیست، برای تحکمه.
A day earlier, US President Donald Trump said he wrote a letter to Iran's leader seeking a deal to restrain Tehran's nuclear capabilities or face military action. Returning home now, and Labor has cemented its place in Western Australian history, securing a rare third term in a comfortable victory. While Premier Roger Cook celebrates the win, the result has left the Liberals searching for answers and sparked a fresh debate about the future of the party.
A freshly brewed victory for a Premier riding high on a resounding win. Roger Cook was met with a hero's welcome in his electorate.
Thanks, mate.
After Labor celebrated another landslide win.
It's a vindication and a strong endorsement of our plan to keep the state the strongest economy in the country.
It was a sea of red inside Labor's party room in Maylands, one of the state's safest seats, reflecting the party's dominance with at least 40 electorates secured. Were you watching last night?
Absolutely.
Were you surprised by the results?
Yes.
Not surprised by the results, but surprised how poorly the Liberals actually did this time.
Labor first returned to power in 2017 with 41 seats. Under Mark McGowan, they made history in 2021, dominating with 53. And in 2025, they've done it again.
Western Australia has not had a third term of government since 1989.
The last three terms, including this one, have shown that the Liberal Party is totally disorientated.
Despite hopes of a comeback, the Liberals only clawed back a few key seats by narrow margins.
The Labor brand is holding up in Western Australia, perhaps better than anywhere else in the country, and the Liberals are really still in the doldrums.
One of the closest contests was in Churchlands, the state's most marginal seat. Perth Lord Mayor and media personality Basil Zemplis narrowly claimed victory after years of speculation about his future in state politics. His win now fuels fresh talk of a Liberal leadership spill.
What are the lessons that we can learn? Who is the best person to lead the charge going forward?
But for many voters, it wasn't just about party loyalty, it was about results.
For myself, I'm a staunch Labor supporter, and it'll be a hard change for me to change my ways. So.
This election wasn't just a Labor-Liberal showdown. Minor parties also made gains. The WA Greens posted their best state election results yet, with MP Brad Pettit believing they could hold the balance of power. Climate concerns drove voters in key seats like Fremantle to favour Greens and Independents over Labor. In regional WA, the Nationals held firm, a warning sign for federal Labor ahead of the next election.
A lot of noise tonight, a lot of cheer. It almost feels like it was a repeat of 2021. Would you describe yourself as quietly confident in your federal campaign?
Never take anything for granted. We work hard every single day.
Well, let's head to our Western Australian correspondent, Christopher Tan. He's been following developments from Perth. Good evening, Chris. What does Labor's victory in the West mean for the federal election?
Well, Janice, the victory here in WA comes off the back of strong economic growth and a rate cut in February, in which in an ideal world you would think the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese would have loved to be on stage with his Premier Roger Cook last night after the Liberals conceded defeat in less than 2 hours. But of course, Cyclone Alfred got in the way, in which he said that he's putting the national interests over politics. Now, why Albanese's visit is so significant is because there are key federal seats in WA at play, where cost of living is front and centre for many households, and in the regions is the live sheep export ban. Now, of course, Western Australians returns to the polls in the coming months. And this morning I spoke to a number of voters who say they want federal change but want Labor to convince them of their vote, while others say they are voting Labor but possibly because of the weekend's results with the state Liberal shambles. And Janice, of course, others are still undecided on their vote, and that's because we've just had a state election on the weekend.
Thank you so much. That's our WA correspondent, Christopher Tan, updating us from the shores of Perth. Well, faced with a sluggish economy and a government austerity drive, economists in Indonesia are hoping for a boost in consumer confidence during Ramadan. It typically sees Indonesians spending more on food and retail, but concerns over domestic and global financial pressures could limit its impact this year.
Afternoon in Indonesia's capital, and residents are preparing to break their fast. Millions turn to local food stalls like this that appear in the hours before sunset across the city.
Sama-sama bagus, karena cuaca juga ngedukung ya, pembelinya juga makin rame. Pokoknya best lah untuk tahun ini juga terbaik lah.
The month of Ramadan typically sees food and retail sales in Indonesia increase by between 20 to 30%. But this year could see more households opting to save.
Kalau aku sendiri, caranya ya gimana caranya hidup efektif, efisien, apa yang bisa dikurangi ya dikurangi.
Indonesia's macroeconomic indicators are all generally positive, with a steady rate of 5% GDP growth over the past decade. But at the start of 2025, consumer confidence is down. Analysts hope Southeast Asia's largest economy will receive a boost during Ramadan.
I mean, if you look at the historical data, this is usually we're going to see an increase in consumption level during Ramadan and also during Idul Fitri. So I hope it could help our economy because now we know that the government also reduced spending on several sectors, which probably going to also affect our economy.
This year's Ramadan comes not only at a time of low consumer confidence, but as the government embarks on an ambitious austerity drive, aiming to cut billions of dollars in public spending. President Prabowo Subianto plans to cut government spending by around $30 billion to fund his flagship policies, including to deliver free lunches in schools. The austerity measures, which will see cuts to education and health, saw widespread protests in February.
Kita sebagai mahasiswa sangat marah dan turun ke jalan akhirnya untuk mendapatkan kembali hak kami, menyuarakan kembali apa sih yang kita menjadi marah terhadap pemerintah sekarang.
President Prabowo has defended his policies and his popularity remains high. The administration has targeted 8% GDP growth by 2029 and will be hoping that growth starts this month during Ramadan. In Jakarta, Aaron Fernandez, SBS World News.
Women have taken to the streets around the globe to mark International Women's Day. It was officially recognised by the United Nations back in 1977. And today, women are demanding equity and an end to discrimination and gender-based violence.
Woman, life, freedom, they chant in Istanbul. Posters demanding rights. Riot police ready with their own demand.
The slogans you are chanting are unlawful. Stop your slogans immediately.
Turkey withdrew from a European treaty in 2021 that combats violence against women. The country's We Will Stop Femicides platform says almost 400 women were killed by men last year.
Kadına şiddetten sonra cezaların uygulanmayışı, yeterli ceza uygulanmayışı büyük bir sorun ülkemiz için. Bu yüzden herhalde geceleri kadınlar yürümekte zorlanıyor.
For protesters in Rome, domestic violence also front of mind. In Paris, honouring Gisèle Pellicot, who went from being a rape victim to an international feminist hero during France's largest rape trial last year.
Gisèle Pellicot, c'est vraiment un exemple. J'ai vu plein de pancartes qui disaient merci Gisèle là aujourd'hui parce elle a été d'un courage énorme d'aller faire ce procès, etc. Et elle a donné la voix à toutes les femmes victimes de violences sexuelles et sexistes, de viols et tout ça.
Argentina's President Javier Milei eliminated his country's Ministry of Women when he took office.
La marcha en particular, yo creo que a todas las mujeres lo que nos genera es la sensación de la no soledad.
In New York, young and old on the chilly streets.
I can't believe we're here again for this and that women's rights consistently are under attack.
The Trump administration abolishing diversity, equity and inclusion initiatives, propelling protest.
I think we have to get rid of this Republican majority in the government and we have to get rid of this president. I don't think there's any other choice.
Defiance mixed with joy, from Chile to Brazil. While in Berlin, 75-year-old Ingrid resilient.
Wichtigen Botschaften ist, wir haben immer noch nicht alles erreicht, die Gleichberechtigung ist nicht erreicht und die gleiche Bezahlung auch nicht.
A message shared by demonstrators around the world. Pruluan, SBS World News.
Coming up, why there's fresh hope for answers over one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. Plus, cue the confetti, champions crowned in the Women's National Basketball League. It remains one of the world's greatest aviation mysteries. 11 years ago, Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 disappeared over the Indian Ocean. The Boeing 777 was on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 people on board. So far, search efforts have been largely unsuccessful. But now, a new hunt is underway.
Renewed hope for families of those on board MH370, with marine exploration firm Ocean Infinity resuming the search for the missing plane.
Even then, with hope, it's difficult for us to get excited or be overly hopeful because we've never had any success in the past.
It will expand the previous search area by 15,000 square kilometers. Its last search ended in 2018. Ocean Infinity's Armada 7806 ship is off the coast of Western Australia, about 2,000 kilometres west of Perth. Malaysia's Transport Minister Anthony Loke says contract details are being finalised. If successful, the maritime company will receive more than $110,000.
They felt they're very confident that the current search area is more credible, so that they are confident this area will come back with a positive result.
Flight MH370 departed Kuala Lumpur on the 8th of March in 2014, bound for Beijing, carrying 12 crew members and 227 passengers, mostly Chinese nationals, as well as 50 Malaysians and 7 Australian citizens. Military radar showed the Boeing 777 leaving its flight path to fly back over northern Malaysia and then out into the Andaman Sea before turning south.
370, maintaining level 350. Malaysian 370. Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night, Malaysian 370.
After that, all contact was lost.
I don't believe they're actually going to find the plane again this time because of the research and investigations that I've done. Concluded that the plane didn't actually come to the southern Indian Ocean, but it was flown across the northwest of the northern Indian Ocean.
Experts who were part of the first search for the plane, skeptical of the new effort.
I remain somewhat confused about what the basis of the new search is. I think it's unlikely to be successful, sadly. I would love the aircraft to be found, and I really, really hope I'm wrong.
Families optimistic the search will bring them answers. Helena Krishnamurthy, SBS World News.
The recent launch of DeepSeek's artificial intelligence model has signified that China is close to catching up with America's Silicon Valley. In other high-tech areas, it may have even had a head start, including in advanced robotics.
Robots building robots, a scene from a dystopian future where humans have been removed from the equation. This isn't science fiction. The stars of the show at this year's Spring Festival Gala, watched by 700 million people across China, was a group of dancing robots. It was a statement of intent from a country that now leads the world in automaton technology. At the headquarters of EX Robot, technical director Wang Fang shows off the capabilities of his creations. Hand movements capable of feeling and expressing 26 levels of sensitivity, all using components from China.
In terms of a technological advancement, we're not as good as the United States. There's no need to deny this. But from the perspective of a complete industrial chain, there's no country in the world that can compare with China.
China already uses more industrial robots than anywhere else. But rapid advances in AI could see humanoid robots operating in the medical field within the next 5 years. Skills that enhance or supersede human capabilities.
This does feel a little bit like a Hollywood movie. But technology like this has very real-world applications and could be used on a building site or even in a medical clinic.
The mechanics are still not quite there. Motors too bulky and inefficient, resulting in slightly jerky and imprecise movements. But if the motors are the body, then the brain is AI, and easily accessible technologies like DeepSeek will transform the industry.
At this stage in the piece, we might be looking for more knowledgeable or expert opinion. But in this case, why not go straight to the source? Are humans going to be overtaken by robots?
Robots will not completely replace human jobs in the short term. Humans still have advantages in creative work, emotional relationships, and some complex decision-making.
In the short term, says the AI. It sounds rather ominous. But fear not. If you're worried about an advanced robotic Terminator taking over, the engineers here say it'll never happen.
Tony Cheng reporting there on the rise of the robots. Well, time now for Sunday Night Sport with Breanna, Holden. And Bree, there is a new WNBL champ.
Yes, Janice, the celebrations are just getting started. It was a simple equation for the Townsville Fire: beat the Bendigo Spirit and send the Grand Final Series to a decider. And the Fire fought hard, but their flame was burned out as they fell agonisingly short, going down 63-55 in Game 2 of the final series. Sammy Whitcomb top scored with 26 points, 3 assists and 2 rebounds to help the Bendigo Spirit clinch their 3rd championship title.
And they are going to get it done in 2. Ellis lets it fly. The Bendigo Spirit are champions in 2025 for the 3rd time and the first time in 11 years. And they sweep the final series, 4 zip to take it.
There's no other team I'd rather have won with. It felt inevitable with this group. It felt like we were building something from the beginning. And this was hard and so tough, but we earned it, and I'm so proud.
Whitcomb's efforts saw her take out the Rachel Spawn medal for Grand Final MVP. In the men's game, Melbourne United have a 1-0 lead over the Illawarra Hawks after the first game in the best-of-5 Grand Final series. Chris Goulding and Matthew Dellavedova conquered the hosts' home court advantage, putting in a clinical final quarter display. Dellavedova finished with 18 points, while Goulding registered an admirable 15. Marcus Lee then chipped in with a double-double as he picked up player of the match.
They'll make adjustments. We'll see what they do. We've got to make sure we're ready for anything.
When you lose a game, you know, you're always disappointed of how you play. Wish you would have found a way to win. But I don't see it as a setback. I just see it as a learning experience, and knowing that we have 4 more other potentials to kind of learn from this one.
Game 2 of the Championship Series takes place on Wednesday night in Melbourne. To football, and Liverpool has moved another inch closer to a record equaling 20th league title, with Mohamed Salah once again getting the Reds across the line as they defeated Southampton 3-1. Nottingham Forest were also big winners overnight, defeating Manchester City, Brighton, Aston Villa and Crystal Palace too, picking up 3 points.
Anfield abuzz as Liverpool looked to march another 3 points clear in the title, one the Reds couldn't rectify before the break. Taking no chances, Arne Slot then made 3 half-time changes.
I don't think we played good today. I don't think, maybe second half we played a little bit, but first half we didn't play good at all. But that's, if you want to win the Champions League or the Premier League, you have to win that kind of games.
Enough to defeat Brentford. While overseas, Bundesliga runaway.
Things are getting hot in the battle for playoff spots in the A-League Women's. Wellington Phoenix pulled off a 2-1 comeback this afternoon, showing its resilience after going a goal down. The win also meant they claimed the Sister City Cup, a trophy celebrating the relationship between Blacktown City and Porirua in New Zealand, a relationship that goes back 41 years. Meanwhile, last night, Adelaide United extended their undefeated streak with a 1-0 win over the Central Coast Mariners. Great Western Sydney have closed out round 1 with a statement win over Collingwood. The Giants, however, will be sweating on injury concerns heading into next week. The game was halted in the first quarter when Kieran Briggs went down in a contest. He was then stretchered off with a neck concern and sent straight to hospital for assessment, while Pies star Nick Dacos appeared to suffer a leg injury. The Melbourne Storm have maintained a unique record in the NRL, winning what is now 23 consecutive round 1 games. The Storm put on a clinic against the Eels in Jason Ryle's first game as senior Parramatta coach. Ryan Pappenhausen and Xavier Coates bagged 2 tries apiece, with the game all but over before half-time after the Eels conceded a demoralising 8 tries in the first half alone. Not a good start to the season. In rugby, Ireland's Six Nations Grand Slam hopes are over. The side stunned by France in a first home defeat in the tournament for 4 years. They could still win the Six Nations, but France are now top of the table, while Scotland beat Wales to go third, ahead of England, who play tomorrow.
Flying towards the title? Well, quite possibly. A day of French euphoria, but for Ireland, only heartache.
Yeah, come on!
Earlier, their fans had arrived with high hopes, but fair to say, so had their opponents.
Allez les Bleus! Allez les Bleus!
And with good reason, it seemed, as Louis Bielbieri put France ahead.
Devastating by the French.
But what's this? Their starman Antoine Dupont had to go off injured, and when Dan Sheehan crashed over after the break,
Dan Sheehan! Cohesion at its best!
Ireland had the lead and seemingly the momentum. But instead, France switched on the style as only they can. A display of dazzling, quite devastating brilliance.
Fabulous! Irresistible French strike!
Bielbieri with another one for his showreel. And by the time that Damien Penaud was sent racing clear, the visitors were out of sight and Ireland simply outclassed.
They're capable of bits of magic there, and we just weren't good enough in that middle section of the second half. Fought back well at the end, but yeah, very disappointing overall.
Well, Ireland's Grand Slam hopes have been dashed here in the most extraordinary style. But what a performance from France, and it means they're now in pole position to win the Six Nations title.
At Murrayfield, meanwhile, Scotland were up against Wales, although it was hardly a contest at first, as Scotland charged out of the blocks. Blair Kinghorn set them on their way, and Wales certainly gave them a helping hand. 2 tries for Tom Jordan, as Scotland opened up a 27-point lead. The visitors did finally stir, Teddy Williams among their scorers in a spirited late comeback, but after their 16th defeat in a row, Wales are still searching for that winning feeling.
Andy Swiss with that report. While across the ditch, the Queensland Reds have been carved up in Christchurch. The Crusaders running in 6 tries in a 43 points to 19 romp. The Reds will now return to Brisbane tomorrow, weather permitting, of course. And the New South Wales Waratahs are experiencing a best start to the season in 16 years, pulling off 3 straight wins for the first time since 2009. The Tars smashed the Western Force 34-10 in Sydney, going from wooden spooners last season to second on the ladder under Dan McKellar. Aussie golfer Jason Day is in contention for his first PGA Tour triumph in almost 2 years. He's in the mix for the Arnold Palmer Invitational in Florida. The Australian heads into the final round in 4th, 3 shots off leader Holden Morikawa at Bay Hill Course in Orlando. The 37-year-old finished his 3rd round with 3 consecutive birdies to post a 3 under 69. And finally, in sport, F1 organisers in Melbourne are finalising preparations at the Albert Park circuit. Formula One freight has arrived down under ahead of next week's Australian Grand Prix. Drivers, teams, media and fans from across the globe will be trickling into Melbourne over the next few days ahead of the action and the 2025 F1 season officially kicking off on Thursday. And we'll have all the action from Melbourne across the coming week. Janice, I might be biased, but it is such a fantastic event to start the season.
It sure is, and I can't believe it's rolled around already. Yeah. Amazing. Thanks, Bree. Well, coming up, the weather details and... There they go, from fighter planes to flying salami. Melbourne's iconic Birdman Rally takes off. Let's check the weather forecast now. An ex-tropical cyclone Alfred will continue to move inland, generating showers and storms over eastern parts of New South Wales and Queensland. Showers and storms expected in the inland parts of the Northern Territory, Western Australia, and showers to hit Tasmania as well. To the major centres now, a shower or 2 in Sydney, a possible shower to hit Canberra, partly cloudy skies in Melbourne. Wet weather on the way for Hobart, partly cloudy in Adelaide. The sun will beat down on Perth, a shower or 2. A possible storm as well for Darwin, and the showers to ease in Brisbane. Checking conditions further afield now. Unsettled and thundery in Nundy, showers in Port Vila, partly cloudy skies in Noumea, fine and bright in Auckland and Wellington. To Southeast Asia now, partly cloudy skies in Bangkok, thunder in Phnom Penh, Kuala Lumpur and Jakarta. Heading further north now, overcast skies and grey weather on the way for Beijing, fine and sunny in Seoul, cloudy in Shanghai, overcast as well in Hong Kong and Manila. Let's head west now. Bright blue skies ahead for Beirut, a few showers to hit Jerusalem, cloudy in Baghdad, rain in Islamabad and all clear in Mumbai. To Europe now, partly cloudy skies ahead for Stockholm, fine weather on the way for Moscow, cloudy in London, fine for Warsaw and Paris, thunderstorms in Rome. Checking conditions in Africa now, partly cloudy skies in Algiers, a few showers on the way for Casablanca, partly cloudy and grey for Dakar, thunderstorms in Lagos and Nairobi. Let's see what's happening in South America now. Fine and clear in Caracas, drizzle in Panama City, showers ahead for Bogota, rain in La Paz and unsettled and thundery in Rio. And for North America now, wet and showery in Vancouver, fine weather in New York, foggy in LA, partly cloudy in Havana and fine and bright in Mexico City. Well, a low-intensity heat wave for much of Victoria was as good as any excuse for participants to don their best homemade flying devices and take a plunge into the Yarra River. The Birdman Rally is a long-held tradition at Melbourne's yearly Moomba Festival, and this year's Moomba Monarchs were a trio of Italian-Australian comedians known as Sushi Mango, and they were among the 14 contestants.
Look, we've been making salami now 52 years. The best salami is from us. So we make one airplane from the salami. It's going to fly straight to Italy, this one.
The salami plane, there they go. Well, none of the contestants did actually make it to Italy. The eventual winner did fly a total of 8.8 metres. The competitors also raised a combined total of $57,000 for various charities. That is a World this Sunday. If you missed any of tonight's bulletin, catch up via SBS On Demand. You can also keep up to date by downloading the SBS News app and by visiting SBS News Online. I'll be back with news updates right throughout the evening here on SBS, but for now, from the World News team, good night.